Okay. So all of that's super high level, but you're going to hear a lot of very specific complaints against the IDF in particular. We already know that Hamas does not comply with the law of war. Everything that you just saw happen over the last 3 or 4 days are war crimes. It's just war crime after war crime after war crime after war crime, and nobody serious on this earth disputes that. And the fastest way to know if somebody is not serious on this earth is if they say what Hamas did was not war crimes. So that does not mean that Israel can commit war crimes in response. It does give Israel the authority under the law of war to respond, to defeat Hamas. And Hamas has embedded itself in the civilian population, war crime. And Hamas has uses civilian structures and buildings to defend itself while in Gaza, war crime. So you're going to see Israel doing things like blowing up banks. You might see it burning. You might see it an airstrike on a mosque. You will see stories of Israeli bombs hitting maybe even hospitals. Now, it's possible that an Israeli soldier could intentionally target a civilian structure, committing a war crime themselves with no foundation. Things like that happen. We've had isolated instances of American soldiers, for example, intentionally killing civilians during the war on terror. But as a general matter, what happens is that Hamas is fully aware of the protected status of civilian buildings, and especially the protected status of buildings like hospitals and schools and mosques. And they will intentionally locate themselves in those buildings because the buildings, what happens is there's a rebuttable presumption that those are protected. So in other words, if you're in that building, you aren't safe unless Israel knows that you're a Hamas fighter in that building, or unless you let them know by firing at Israeli soldiers from that building. But in the instant you use the protected building for military purposes, it loses its protection. And so a lot of people just don't know this. They don't know this at all. And then the media doesn't really provide helpful context. Like they might say, this is an Israeli airstrike against, the third national bank of Gaza, or this is an Israeli airstrike against the, third mosque of Gaza Street or whatever. And they won't say responding to gunfire from Israel ordered an airstrike. So that is very important for people to understand. And then there's another concept that's really important for people to understand, because you will look at some of these cities after, say, the U.S. went into Fallujah, or the U.S. and its allies went into Mosul, and the before and after pictures are sometimes shocking, the devastation of the city. And you say, how can the United States have complied with the laws of war when it leveled Fallujah? Well, I'll introduce you to a term, Sarah. It's called spider webbing. So let's say you have 10 jihadists in one house, and you drop a precision weapon on that one house. Well, it might kill 3 jihadists. There's 7 left. 3 go to another house and 4 go to another house. Well, then those are 7 jihadists are firing back from 2 houses. Well, you precisely target those 2 houses. You get some of them. Maybe they then scatter the diminished number to 3 houses. And you see how it works as the jihadists move from house to house to house, to location to location to location. Each new location becomes a legitimate military target. And the end result looks like something out of World War II. But each individual engagement is justified by the law of war. It is the end result of all of those many, 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 many engagements that at the end of the fight turns Mosul, say, for example, into a moonscape, or Raqqa. And you can just see these images online. But at no point were you violating the laws of war by engaging these jihadists. And I wish there was more discussion of this, because we're about to get a lot of propaganda out of Gaza saying, look at all these civilian targets that Israel is targeting. And always the question is Hamas there? Are Hamas munitions there? Is that a Hamas communications node? Because if Hamas is there, it's not a civilian target anymore. It might have bank on it. It might have a Red Cross on it. It might have a crescent on it. It's just not civilian anymore as soon as Hamas uses it.